This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk in Bombay, 1979.
I believe this is the last meeting. We were going to talk about death and meditation. But before we go into that, we ought to consider time, space, and what is considered as evolution. But I would like, if I may, remind you that we are thinking together. Not that you listen to a series of ideas or words or concepts, but we are together exploring the problem of death, time, and what is the quality of a mind that is meditative. And if one may remind you that the word is not the thing. The word tree is not the actual tree. The word is not the thing, nor the description they describe. One can describe the mountain, paint it, but the painting, the description is not the mountain. In exploring a very complex problem, one must have the capacity not only to use the word, the exact meaning of the word according to dictionary, but also, sir, would you mind not taking a photograph? But also, one must have the capacity and the quality of intensity to go beyond the word. We were talking about the other day about the whole process of thinking. We live by thought. The things that have been created by thought. The illusions, the beautiful architecture, the lovely paintings, and the enormous development of technological knowledge. All the things that are in the churches, in the temples, in the mosque, are created by thought, as well as the beliefs, the expectations, the aspirations, the principles, the ideals are all brought together by thought. And thought, as we have explained in the last few talks here, is limited because it is the outcome of memory, experience, and the accumulation of great deal of knowledge. We live by thought. Our actions are based on thought. And we pointed out the other day that thought, time, is the root of fear. We went into that. We're not going to go again in this afternoon. So, thought, the whole process of thinking, has no opposite. Thought can create its own opposite. Madam, why do you come here if you're reading a book? Then please pay attention to what is being said. Look, sir, ladies, this is a serious thing which we are going to discuss, talk over together. You have to give if you are interested. And if you are not interested, I don't know why you are here. If you are interested, be at least serious for an hour. Because it's not an entertainment. Either intellectual or imaginary or speculative. We are concerned with our life, the way we live, the way we think, the way we act. And so, if one may ask, please be serious, and if you care to give your attention to what is being said, not only to what the speaker has to say, but also to what you are thinking. So as we are saying, thought has no opposite, but it can create its own opposite. And therefore thought, creating its own opposite, brings about conflict. But there is only thinking. Though that thinking divides itself into multiple forms. both actual, transitory, illusory, and what is being perceived. And thought has put together the whole concepts, conclusions, ideals. So we must consider thought as a material process. Thought has not created nature, the animal, the forest, the rivers, the mountains. But thought has made the chair out of nature. Thought has created illusion, which is also actual. So there are, thought is reality. The things it has created is reality, like this, like the microphone. But thought cannot possibly understand or even conceive what truth is. So bearing this in mind, that thought under no circumstances whatsoever, whatever path thought has laid out, which is illusory, to truth is unreal. There are no paths to truth. One must come, it must come when the mind is in a state of quietness, which we are going to examine presently. So first, we must investigate together, please, I mean by this, together. What is time? Time is division. Before and after, the past, the present, and the future. Time by the watch, chronological time, and time as psychological beginning and ending. Right? You're following all this? Please, you have to understand this very, very clearly, because meditation, when it is consciously done, deliberately done, is no meditation. We'll go into that. That's why it's very important at the beginning of our talk together that we understand the nature and the whole structure of time. Time means movement. Time means division. Right? Division from here to there. Not only physical time, but also psychological time. And physical time is necessary to acquire knowledge, to work skillfully, to drive a car, to do any technological activity. Time is necessary. You can't suddenly become a marvelous flower pilot. You have to learn by slowly. It may take a year or two and so on. And man, that is thought, psychologically has created time, which is called evolution. Psychologically, there is evolution of a biological evolution as the baby growing up into adulthood, into man, and dying. There is that psychological and physiological, biological growth, which is obvious. You plant a little bush, a tree, a small tree, and it grows into an enormous tree, takes time. And man, which is the whole movement of thinking, has said there is psychological time. That is, one will become something psychologically. If one is angry, through time, you will be rid of anger. That is, we are questioning, asking if there is any psychological evolution at all. Please think it out with me. Go with, we're working together. There is obviously biological, physiological time. To put a watch together takes time. To go from here to Delhi takes time. But psychologically, inwardly, inside the skin, as it were, is there time at all? We have said there is time. That is, psychologically, one is not good, but eventually you will become, one is bad, eventually one becomes good. The idea of growth. Growth implies a continuity. Right? Please, it may be a little difficult. Go into it with me. I'll explain and go very slowly into this. We are conditioned to accept time as a means of psychological evolution. That you will one day be a marvelous entity. You will one day reach enlightenment. One day you will have great wisdom. And to have wisdom, enlightenment, needs time, psychologically. And therefore you have systems, methods, paths. All that involve the movement of action and time, a continuity. Right? Is this clear? Now we are asking if that is so, or it is a total illusion. We have accepted evolution psychologically. In the afterlife, reincarnation, a continuity of what has been, what is, and what will be. A series of movements which is not broken up, but a continuity. All right? I'm afraid you have to use your brain. You have to think and to see the limitation of thinking. So, we are saying or challenging, questioning, doubting that is there any continuity psychologically? Or thought has said there is a continuity because it is the outcome of memory. Memory is continuous. You following all this? And so psychologically, we say, yes, I will be better next week if I do this, this, this. And time implies not only the cause and the effect becoming the cause. So this movement of cause, effect, which becomes the cause again, is movement of time. Following all this? Because we have, if we don't understand the nature of time, we will not be able to capture or fully comprehend, not intellectually but deeply, the nature of death. Because while we are young, we don't think about death. While even middle age, we are not very greatly concerned. As the body goes older, the mind becomes more heavy, and the eventual death comes, and there is this movement of time. Being young, growing old, being adolescent, growing old, and dying. That's the whole movement of time, divided up by various experiences, activities, and so on, so on, so on. Is this clear? So time is a factor in our life as a movement of avoidance, avoiding, running away, or suppressing, or transcending. You're following all this? Huh? You have to capture it as I talk. I can't repeat it. As I said, man has not resolved the problem of death. what is implied in it, what is the nature of it, why man has been so frightened for million years to die. And to him, death means the ending. Now we're going to investigate together the whole meaning of death. Because in that is involved meditation also. It's not meditation isn't just sitting cross-legged, breathing, keeping your eyes closed and all that business. It involves a very great capacity to investigate, to explore your whole life. If your whole life is in disorder, contradictory, imitative, conforming, and you try to meditate, it has absolutely no meaning. And that's why all of you put on these strange robes, has no meaning whatsoever. But you won't take off these robes, you will continue. So we are inquiring into the nature of death. Death is the ending of what we consider living. That is, living, which is a continuity, and the ending. The continuity is broken up as time. One is young, one is mature, or dies. So this continuity is broken up as time. Success, failure, all that's involved. So first, before we ask, what is the meaning of death? We must also inquire into what is the meaning of living. If we don't understand the meaning of living, you won't be able to understand the meaning of dying. I wonder if you're following all this. So we are going to inquire first, what is the whole nature of our life, what we call living. Living means, as we know it daily, is the continuation of memory. Right? I have been, I am, I will be. And in this movement, which is called living, there is the whole complex of innumerable problems. Fear, with all its ugliness, anxiety, conflict with each other, greed, ambition, comparing, measuring, and hoping something better. This is our life, our daily life. Going to the office from morning till night for the rest of your 50 or 60 years. Just think of the horror of it. Right? And the difference in our relationships based on image. Right? That's obvious. And we never treat life as a whole. We have divided life as the artist, so on, so on, so on. That's our living. Right? That's actual daily living. And this period of time is considered a means to a further end. Right? I wonder if you understand all this. No, please don't shake your head. Go into yourself. We call this living. We have never questioned this living. But we have always questioned about death. We have never asked, why do we live this way with all the anxiety, misery, lack of security, uncertainty, confusion, terrible disorder? We have never asked why we do this, why we live. But we are terribly curious about death and after. Right? Now we are going to question why we live this way first. Because if you don't understand life, you won't understand death. Our life is in disorder. That's obvious. And we're always trying to put order in our life. Right? Obviously. If you're at all aware, intelligent, when it tries to bring order, so we have to inquire, what is order? Please don't get bored with this, because all this is a movement in meditation. Because your mind is now confused, and a confused mind cannot possibly meditate. It has no meaning. So what is order? Not your order and my order. What is order? Doesn't order mean freedom? Right? Freedom implies that everything in one's life has been put in their right place. And therefore there's freedom. Please observe your life. Look at your life. Not the description I'm giving, but actually look at your life, your daily life. When you look at it, you obviously see how disorderly it is, contradictory, wanting this, not wanting that, wishing this and not wishing that, desiring this and the opposite of that desire, changing the objects of desire from time to time. This constant struggle, battle, and fear, and so on, that's our daily life. Now, how will you bring order in this mess, in this chaos? Do you understand my question? Who is to bring order? And seeing the hopelessness of it, we turn to authority. Right? The authority of guru or some other man or woman supposed to be spiritual, and we conform to what they say in order to live a peaceful, orderly life. Tell me what to do, you know better than I do, I will follow you. Right? This is the whole authoritarian world of spiritual, so-called spiritual hierarchy. Because one is confused, one is uncertain, unclear, disorderly, and the guru or the authority says, do this and you will live in order. Probably and assuredly, the guru himself is in disorder. No, watch it. You can watch them. You don't have to accept my word. You can see them. One year they dance, next year they have other kind of tricks and so on, so on, so on. So how do you bring order? Now, please listen carefully. Thought being limited, fragmented, and because it is limited and fragmented, it is in itself disorder. Right? Do you see this? So it cannot possibly bring order. Thought in itself is disorder. Because it's fragmented. That is, a fragment means a thing that's broken up. And thought is breaking up all the time into dividing itself. My nation, your God, my God, your belief, my guru and your guru, and so on, all that nonsense. So thought in itself is divisive. And it is thought that has brought about disorder in our life. Because we live on thought. Our whole action is based on thought. If you see that, if you see the truth of that, that thought, though it technologically brings about marvelous order, perfect dynamo, the rockets that go to the moon, they must function with perfect precision. That's complete order. But thought inwardly is creating this havoc, right? Because thought in itself is divisive, broken up. So thought cannot bring order. That's a principle, that's a law. So what will you do? You understand my question? Because if there is no order in one's life, complete, total order, the mind can never be free. And you must have free, there must be freedom to observe that which is most sacred. If there is something sacred, if there is something immeasurable beyond words, mind must be completely free, and that freedom can only come when there is absolute order. Logic, this is so. So how will the mind, thought, bring order? Because it realizes that it cannot bring order. Right? Please, are you aware of this? Don't accept what the speaker is saying. Are you aware that thought cannot bring order? Look at the world around you. The wars, the terrors, the class divisions, and all the rest of it is the product of thought. And so thought itself is disorder. You won't accept this. So what will bring order? Order can only come into being when there is pure observation. When the mind observes its own disorder. You follow? I wonder if you're following all this. Is it getting too much for you? No, madam, don't. Is this too much for you? Okay. Because, please, I'm going to discuss what is a little bit more into what is meditation and all that. So if you get tired, I'll stop it for a while and you can rest. To observe disorder without any motive. If you have a motive in observation, that very motive brings about disorder. That motive is put together by thought. Right? So that is a factor of distortion. And so the mind is incapable of observing if there is a motive. That is, I live in disorder, my motive is I want to bring order. Because I hope then I'll be free and have moksha and all the rest of it. Which is, that motive is the movement of time, of desire, And therefore, thought brings this motive into action, and therefore there is distortion. So can the mind, please listen to this, can the mind observe the disorder it lives in without saying, I must get out of this disorder, I must suppress it, run away from it, just to observe? Please do it as we are talking. First, be aware of your life as disorder, which it is, and observe it without a single motive, without the interference of thought saying, I must get beyond this. So we're asking, what is observation? What is the nature of looking, observing? To observe without any reaction to that which you are observing. Are you doing this as we are talking? Or you are all meditating? Are you watching yourself and therefore you see your life in disorder? That observation, if it has a motive, distorts and therefore creates more conflict. So can the mind observe very closely, purely, actively the disorder, just to observe? If you so observe, that very observation, which is total attention, please listen to this if you want it, that very observation is total attention, and therefore all the energy is applied in that observation. And that when there is that great attentive observation, the thing that you are observing undergoes a change. That change is order. Right? So, the mind must be entirely, completely in order. And also understand qua into what is space. Space. Because our minds have no space. Because we are occupied all the time, chattering, talking, doing things, everlastingly the brain is in movement. So it is occupied. Whether it's occupied with sex, with business, with God, with your guru, with all your dancing, shaking, and all that business, it is occupied with something or other. And when you are occupied with something, you call it noble or ignoble, but it's still occupation. Therefore, your mind has never space. So what will the mind do to have space? You understand how important space is. Space implies, if you listen carefully, I'll go into it, I don't know if you'll understand, doesn't matter. Space implies emptiness. When there is space, there is emptiness. Therefore, in that emptiness, there is tremendous energy. So, we have said first, desire has its, we have explained what desire is. We went into the question of fear. We went into the question of pleasure, compassion, sorrow, and we have now said order. And this order is not continuity. Moment it has a continuity, in that order becomes disorder, because it involves time. I wonder if you see all this. So now we are going to inquire not only what space is, but also what is meditation. What is meditation? Not how to meditate. You have been taught, part of our education is what to think. Right? What to think, but not how to think. Right? Now, in the same way, we are asking, what is meditation? Because that word is terribly loaded. Every guru, every man who writes about meditation adds his own explanations, his own commentaries, his own feelings, add, and then we are the result of all that. We are second-hand human beings. If you realize that, you wouldn't put any of the roads. So let's go into it. What is meditation? Why should one meditate? To find that out, stop meditating. Right? To find out what is real meditation, what is meditation, not yours and mine, your type and my type or X type, but what is meditation? To find out, you can't hold on to some kind of meditation that you have and then inquire. You can't. It's like a donkey being tied to a post. So you have to be free to inquire. First, one can see very clearly it's only a very, very quiet mind that can observe accurately. Right? A quiet mind can observe accurately only, not a disturbed mind. So quiet mind is absolutely necessary, just to observe. But if you say, ask, how am I to have such a quiet mind? You are then asking for a system, for a method. You're going to somebody who you think has a quiet mind and ask, please tell me what to do. And then you are caught in that trap. Because he will tell you and you will practice if you are silly enough. And you're caught. But you see the importance of having an absolutely quiet mind. A mind that has no problem. Because as we've gone into that question of problem, as a problem arises, deal with it, finish with it. Don't carry on the next day. We went into that, I won't go into it. So we are saying quiet mind implies a mind that has great space, is not occupied with anything. It is not concerned with experience. Because the experiencer is the experience. A man who is a light to himself has no experience. He doesn't need experience because he's awake. I won't go into all that now. So, a mind that is absolutely quiet demands a vast sense of space. And it has no attachment to anything. Right, sir? Because the moment you are attached to your wife, to your family, to your name, to your house, to your anything, ideals, what else? Your beliefs, dogmas, they're all the product of thought. Right? So a quiet mind means the ending of this continuity. You understand, sir? So we said, before we go into the question of meditation, I forgot about death. I must go into it. Death means the ending. Right? That's simple, that's obvious. The ending of what? The ending of your attachment. Let's take that as an example. Can you end your attachment immediately? Because that is death. Right? You're following this? Suppose I'm attached to what? I don't know. Suppose I'm attached to a house and I see the consequences of being attached. Fear, anxiety, jealousy, or to person, better, to jealousy, antagonism, dominance, all that follows in attachment. Death says, I can't be attached when I die. So it says, end it. Now can you end your attachment? No. Go on, sir, work it out. Voluntarily. Not compelled, coerced, persuaded. Death doesn't persuade you, doesn't coerce you. So can you, while you are living, end? The things that you hold are the most important things, psychologically. So when you end this continuity, something totally new happens. Must, inevitable. When you give up, I don't know, whatever you give up, easily, happily, something extra dimensional thing takes place, which is not a reward, it takes place. So death, I haven't time to go into all of it, is the ending of that which has had continuity. It's too complex, I won't go into it now because our time is limited. See, man, throughout the ages, historically, has searched endlessly to find out what happens after death. Volumes have been written on it. And reincarnation is one of the happy inventions, comforting. Because you have never inquired what is it that continues. You have accepted reincarnation as a means of improving yourself, becoming nobler, better, eventually reaching God's head, highest principle, and so on. So you have never questioned this continuity. Because that which continues is mechanical. Right? I wonder if you see that. And that which has an end can begin with something entirely different. So, while living, end the various things that are creating, like fear, end it. End your jealousy, your ambition, your greed, everything. Bring it to a precise end so that it has no continuity. That is death, isn't it? So can you, while living, with all your vigor, end the things that death demands? You can test it out. So, while living, you're also dying. You understand? Look at this. Because then there is totally new thing happening all the time. But if you say, well, I have a future life, or I hope there will be, you're lost. You've gone off into something entirely different. I haven't time to go into the question of what it is that continues if we don't end. I'm not going to go into that. Now, from there we can move into what is meditation. We said meditation is a state of mind in which there is all the things that thought has invented, the illusions, the beliefs, the dogmas, the rituals, the habits, the sexual, all that is no longer entering into the mind that's absolutely quiet. Now, is it possible to have such a mind? Do you understand my question? I'm going to examine it. We're going to examine it together. We all need a quiet mind, a peaceful mind, an absolute silent mind, without a murmur of thought. Is that possible? Possible means we don't know. If you know already, that knowledge is the remembrance of something of the past. Therefore, it's not a quiet mind. So we are saying, is it possible to have an absolutely mind that is without a ripple? We're going to find out. To discover if it is possible, first you must understand the nature of attention. What is the nature of attention? To attend. And what is the nature of inattention, not attention, right? And what is the nature of concentration? And what is the nature of distraction? You following all this? First, what does one mean by concentration? That's what most people try to do, concentrate. Right? You're taught from childhood to concentrate. In school, say, look at your book. Don't look out of the window. So, what do we mean by concentration? And who is it that's concentrating? Thought, that's why thought has projected an image or an idea, a concept, or a picture, on that you concentrate. That means exclude all other thoughts. But the exclusion becomes impossible because thought itself is divisive. I wonder if you understand this. No, you don't. So, there is no distraction. Thought says concentrate on that, and any movement away from that is distraction. But the movement away from it is the movement of thought. Thought says concentrate, and thought also moves away from it. The moving away from it is distraction. But thought itself is a distraction because it's moved away. You following all this? I want to see this. Please don't laugh. Look at it. This is very, very serious. if you want to go into meditation. So there is no distraction, because thought itself is a distraction. The moment it says, I must concentrate. Right? And what is attention and what is not being able to attend? Say you have been here for nearly over an hour. You are tired at the end of the day. You've listened to a lot of words. And if you have gone into yourself, you become rather tired. And you cannot, when you are tired, attend. So just go, I'm going purposely slowly, so that you can gradually gather your energy, so that you're able to investigate together. So we are saying what is attention and what is inattention. Attention means to attend, to give all your energy to look, to attend, to hear, to absorb, to see. You can only do that for a couple of seconds probably, or a minute. And that attention goes down and there is inattention. Right? You're not completely attentive. Right? You have understood? Attention demands that you give all your energy, with all your senses, with all your mind and heart, completely attentive. But that intense, active attention cannot be sustained by most people. So inattention comes. But when you are aware of that inattention, that you are not attending, that very perception that you are not attending is attention. You got it? Have you got it? Have you? So that what is important is that there is no conflict in the mind. Never saying, I was attentive, I know what it means, I want to capture it again. That whole movement is, if you are aware of, is attention. Right? You get it? You've understood some of it? So, meditation implies the emptiness of consciousness, emptiness of the mind, in which there is no ripple, the ripple being the thought. And that's possible only when you understand the nature of concentration, with all its resistance, its limitation, and when there is concentration, there is distraction, which is still a movement of thought, and meditation implies the ending of thought. Because thought has realized itself, its own place, as we went into it. But it has no other place. I wonder if I can tell you this. Think only when it's necessary, not otherwise. You understand? I wonder if you understand this. If you are thinking all the time, there's no space. So you see that it is necessary to have space. If you are living in a city where everybody is living in a small space, they begin to quarrel, they begin to have violence comes from the lack of space, partly. So there must be space. And there cannot be space if any time there is occupation. If you understand why the mind is occupied, which is in occupation, it feels secure. Right? The housewife occupied with her cooking, whatever she does, she's occupied and therefore secure. If she is not occupied, she says, what am I to do? But if you see the truth that occupation prevents space, then when you see the truth of it, then there's no problem, you have space. So, your mind, the mind, which is all the senses fully operating in their not particular sense, but all the senses at their highest excellence, and if you have no love in your heart, you can't meditate. There is no meaning to meditation if you don't love. That means care, beauty, sense of immense compassion. And that's the, and having space. There, from that, the mind is capable of being absolutely still, without a flutter of thought. If you have gone into it very deeply, this can take place by the hour, not for a few minutes or few seconds. And in that emptiness, which is full of energy, there is that which is eternity. Eternity doesn't mean continuity. It is beyond time, because time has stopped, which is thought has stopped. And in that absolute quietness, there is that which is nameless, timeless, measureless. You can't come to it by any path. There's no path to it. Only when you understand the whole nature of yourself, you have read the story of yourself from the beginning to the ending of the book. Therefore, you have total order in your life. Then only you have that extraordinary sense of freedom. And then that which is the most sacred with all its blessing comes into being.